You got to make up room in this portal if you're going to close the gap with the superpowers that are playing in these playoffs. Well, this will be the final Dawg Talk with Brock here in the 2024 year. We'll do one more in the new year, reacting to a bowl game, and a pretty cool bowl game, a bowl game I'm familiar with, a bowl game, the Sun Bowl, that left a lasting mark on my digestive system for the rest of my life. Actually, that's not true, not for the rest of my life, but certainly in the short term when I returned from El Paso, I had a little bit of a challenge, but the people, the atmosphere, the environment, the stadium, all really, really great. Many of the bowl games outside of the playoff games that you could have landed on when it comes to El Paso for fans going down there, it really is one of the most hospitable. They love entertaining. They have great pride in the Sun Bowl and what that means in that community. And for those going down, I think we'll enjoy a pretty good and cool scene. What I learned, what I think, what I know. What I learned, what I think, and what I know. Kind of big picture today with a little bit of looking ahead to the bowl game and looking back at last week with the recruiting and the early signing period. What I learned this season is that a 6-6 Washington Husky season was a B-. That if I just put a final grade on everything that was the 2024 season, I've got to grade it a B-. I think an opportunity in game number 13 to make a mark. It's not quite a finals. It's not a playoff game. You can't rewrite the whole semester, but you can do some work to elevate that maybe to a B or B+ if you have an extraordinary game with a lot of components that come together. But to me, overall, what I learned is this was a B- season. It was awesome at home. It was an A+. It was undefeated. It was marquee wins against blue bloods like USC and Michigan and everything else. So it was an unblemished home season, but it was a pretty brutal road season, including the one in Seattle that still, when you look back, stings, really stings the most. The one in Piscataway against Rutgers on a Friday night, you had multiple opportunities. You kicked yourselves, didn't finish that one. But the one that, over the course of the season, when you look back at it, the fact that you lose to your in-state rival, that being the difference. I think Vegas came into this season, most over-unders were 7, and you underperform, those Vegas numbers, and you really do point to that one as the most disappointing loss of the season. Certainly not the most humbling. That was at Penn State, and even Oregon in the second half was pretty humbling. But you're talking about playoff teams versus a team in Washington State that if you could go back and rewrite it and get one more win and get to 7-5 and raise that grade from a B- to maybe a B, that was the one that you circled. So overall, I learned this was a B- season. Year number 1 for Jedd Fisch. And a crew that was never going to be an A. It was just, you're never going to be good enough this season at the line of scrimmage to go into the Big Ten, to play Oregon, to play Penn State, to play Iowa, to play those Big Ten teams that are very mature at the line of scrimmage. It wasn't going to be an A season. It wasn't an F season, but a B- season with a couple hiccups along the way. Here's what I think. I think Louisville is a really good team. Just taking a look at them this morning and studying some of their numbers and knowing their personnel. I know Coach Braun pretty well. I've covered a bunch of his games through the years, Purdue and then Western Kentucky. The dude is innovative offensively, and there's not many teams that have a 3,300-yard passer, a 1,000-yard rusher, a 1,000-yard receiver. This is a dynamic team. This is an 8-4 team as well, and I think that's why the Huskies are underdogs in this Sun Bowl matchup. And oh, by the way, all 4 of those losses by 1 score. They did not get blown out one time. And in fact, they had to also face 2 playoff teams. They lose to Notre Dame by a touchdown. They lose to SMU by a touchdown. They lose to Miami, who was 13th in the rankings, by a touchdown. Really, the only bad loss for them was to a bad Stanford team where they gave up 38 points and lost 38-35. 4 one-score losses. So when the fans mingle down there in El Paso and the Huskies see the cards and, hey, how was your season? Hey, yeah, it's a season of coulda, shoulda, woulda. 4 one-score losses, the difference between Louisville playing in the Sun Bowl against a Big Ten team in Washington and Louisville being a real player in a possible playoff push, which they were in some stretches of the season. So I think this is a really, really difficult matchup and a quality opponent. It's not Oregon. It's not Penn State. They're not that dominant at the line of scrimmage, but they've got a lot of skill, a lot of experience, and Tyler Shuck, their quarterback, I think is on his 9th year in his 5th program in college football. Very stark contrast to your true freshman that more than likely will make his 2nd start. So what I learned, what I think, what I know. What I know is that the Huskies signed the 23rd ranked recruiting class. What I know is that puts them behind Ohio State and Oregon and Michigan and SC, obviously, in the conference, and right next to Nebraska, which is really where this program is right now. Big picture. Big picture, as I said on the season, B- season. Big picture of where you sit in the Big Ten, well, it's right where you sit in those rankings, frankly, in the early signing period. Signing 29 guys, signing 8 4-stars, 21 3-stars, that gives you a lot of stable talent. But if you're going to catch the Oregons and the Ohio States, the Michigans, the USCs, this portal season of the next month, this final representation and presentation in this Sun Bowl that you give to recruits, you give to kids that are in the portal, this will be your last shot to do it, and this one has got to hit. You have got to hit in the portal at the line of scrimmage, especially offensively, defensively too, in ways you could not do in year one. Year one, you're playing catch-up. Year one, Jedd Fisch was late to the party. Year one, it was really hard. You were not going to be Kurt Signetti. You were not going to be some of these places just with the timing of the DeBoer move and where that fit you on the calendar. That is not the case now. You put together a top 25 recruiting class. Now you got to put together a top 10, top 5 portal class. You got to make up room in this portal if you're going to close the gap with the superpowers that are playing in these playoffs, the superpowers that are top of the Big Ten, the superpowers that you are going to be chasing in every which way this offseason and pushing into 2025.